The current primitives that quantum mechanics can do better than classical mechanics are a bit limited. So the most important thing is not to care about the algorithms themselves, but the primitives that are actually available for the algorithm, because there are many algorithms which are comprised of different primitives. It's like mixing Lego pieces.
Professor Giancarlo Gatti from Mondragon University. Professor Gatti, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Pleasure to meet you. You can call me Giancarlo if you want. So I'm from Mondragon University. I teach in the physical engineering career and also do research on, I could say, quantum cryptography and quantum communication protocols, which is an adaptation from what I used to do in my PhD related to this topic called quantum random access codes. And I had a hammer, so I wanted to use it for something useful, so I tried to find something, and that's how it came to be. And I'm Peruvian. I arrived in Spain in 2018 for my PhD, and I've stayed. I live in Bilbao currently. That's where my part of Mondragon University is.
And how did you enter the quantum field? Maybe were you interested in physics from a young age, or what was the motivational factor?
Yes, that's true. I was interested from a young age, and as an undergrad, my first option as a research group back then was quantum optics. We had an experimental quantum optics lab, but my real interest was quantum information. And since quantum optics was the closest, that was my first approach. Then I started getting theoretical during the masters, and my PhD fully confirmed that, doing the PhD in the University of the Basque Country.
And both your undergrads were in physics, or?
Yes. Undergrad, masters, and PhD in quantum technology.
Tell us, for the audience that doesn't know, the field of quantum communications, how would you describe the elements, the core elements which lead into it, and what is the main mission of quantum communication?
Okay, so the thing is, I am not on one of the usual elements of quantum communications, but it has to do with... So I'm currently focused on quantum stuff related to quantum cryptography. This has to do with protocols such as the BB84, which is the one that really has a standard now, and it's meant to provide security using quantum resources. Another side of the picture is to view quantum technologies as an attacker for something you want to defend, like RSA security, for instance. RSA encryption, sorry. But I usually take the approach of trying to use quantum as a resource.
Correct. And in the security field, are you more theoretical or applied, where you try to use existing quantum security algorithms or encryption keys or already researched topics, and you want to implement them in existing non-quantum or classical computing fields, or are you researching new ones?
Actually, yes, on both accounts. I am theoretical, and I devised a protocol. We're still in finding out the last details because we need to compare against previous stuff. I'm working on something which could be called oblivious transfer. We're doing it in a novel way. It has also been done with adaptations of the BB84. We still need to finish up the comparison, but we are interested in doing experimental implementations, and we're trying to discuss with experimental groups because we think that this is realizable in the short term. At least a proof of concept with current technologies is very applicable, and you don't need many more qubits to do it on a near useful scale. Got
it. And when you say short term, you mean in the next 2 or 3 years, or in the next year?
Yeah, not next year, but I would say 2 or 3 years, but just to tune in the details. The hardware is maybe ready.
The hardware is ready? Okay.
And it's an interesting problem. It's related to my problem. My specific problem is to have a database. Someone has a database, we usually call her Alice, and someone wants to do a query, we call him Bob. And the problem is Bob wants to query one line, but both have rules. Alice doesn't want to share her database, the full database, and Bob doesn't want to reveal what row he wants. So these two things enter in conflict if you're just working with classical. Of course, there are some strategies in classical as well, This is called oblivious transfer in classical, but there are some restrictions that need to be followed. We also need to finish the comparison against the classical oblivious transfer. But
and where does the quantum advantage come from?
So the edge that quantum can provide here is that when you encode information in a quantum system, which by the way we encode the full database into a quantum state, you have limited access. You always need to measure in one way or another. So be it a measurement basis or maybe a POBM, but if you use a fully destructive measurement, like a projective measurement, once you do it, it's over, the state is done for, and you made your choice. So that's the whole idea. You encode the database into a quantum state, specifically what we call mutually unbiased bases, which are different ways of measurement whose informational content is disjoint. So the probability distribution of one doesn't have anything to do with the probability distribution of the other. They have no correlation. They have this nice property, which is very handy for us. And we do that, and we send this data to Bob, and Bob is forced to measure in one way or the other. And once he measures in one of the ways which we associated to one of the rows in the database, then he sampled a bit from that row, and then we will give him a few samples because we need to improve the probability up to reasonable levels. But he does his choice, and once this is done, each sample is dead and can no longer be used for anything else. So it's like granting a limited access to a database without having to ask what line do you want.
And that is transformative for a lot of industries?
I wouldn't say for a lot of industries, but it certainly has some applications. The simplest way to think about it could be, let's say you're a simple example. Let's say you're a bank and there's an auditor, and this auditor needs the bank information of one of the clients who's being investigated by the law, let's say. But the auditor doesn't want the bank to know which client it is. And the bank, of course, doesn't want to reveal the full contents of its clients. So this is a nice recipe to do it, but it's with statistical guarantees. It's not informationally secure. It's impossible to do it informationally secure. But what we provide is a scheme in which if the auditor tries to get more than one row, more than one client, then the auditor loses success probability, loses some fidelity in the retrieval. So that there's a cost to try to get more information. And that's what this technique can provide.
And for what I see here is it allows privacy, but also allows for still transactions between parties.
Yeah, so it's actually called user privacy and data privacy. So literally we're doing that.
Yeah.
And we also tried, at some point, we tried doing some collaboration with defense, because we had some ideas of how this could be used for communication between non-trusting parties. And it's still work in progress. It will be interesting.
And what would you say, to zoom out, is one of the constraints you're having now? Is it more on the algorithm side or the theoretical side? Or do you see the constraints in the implementation of something like that from the hardware side, or just the access to hardware right now?
So we still have many aspects which are work in progress. So everywhere we see there's a possibility of advancement. We currently don't have any hard wall. We have possibilities of how to implement. We have things against to contrast with. There is already other versions of quantum oblivious transfer, as I said. And also resources to be able to do the research. It's all soft walls, but not really hard walls yet.
And in your specific domain, if we want to imagine your daily life, let's assume that, like your daily tasks, how can we imagine your daily job? Are you wake up, you go to teach, or do you like to research more? And if you research, how does this look like? And especially, how does it look like in today's world, where we see huge advancements in personal AI assistants, AI, coding agents? Do you use those things? Do you think this will be very, very impactful for a job? And will it accelerate something, what you do personally, to a degree where you haven't thought about it before, that it can accelerate?
So would you like to know how my current way of working is, or my ideals?
Currently, and then maybe also the outlook of the future.
Yeah. So currently, I teach courses in Mondragon University, which I really enjoy. I've created the quantum mechanics 2 and the quantum computing courses, which was a huge learning opportunity for me to review some basics.
So you created the courses?
Yes, I made them, yeah.
That is impressive.
Yeah, it was fun and hard. And I like making slides in style, and I loved making a poster as well.
Wow.
The way in which I present my research, doing art around it, is something I really enjoy as well.
That is interesting. Wow. And now maybe on the future outlook, what do you use some of the AIs currently, or do you plan to use them?
So in the future, I would like to do a collaboration with a research group, with an experimental group, to implement this algorithm. But in parallel, finish up the metrics again, the performance metrics against other algorithms, to be able to compare against other algorithms. So it's on the real side, and then from there we'll see what we can do once we get some real implementation. Because our proof of concept only needs 2-qubit systems, and that's very manageable. Of course, if we want to make an honest proof of concept, we're talking about quantum communications, so we need flying qubits, photons, something that goes from one side to the other, which is why we're focusing on photonics for now.
And access to such hardware is provided by the private sector, or do you also have access to something on the research institutes?
So the collaboration with experimental, of course, it's usually we try to talk with research groups. Funding for our own research usually is coming from the Basque government, which is making a huge, let's say, it's making a huge investment in quantum technologies. Bilbao is being a core place for this. That much is nice. And and I am in a private university. So Mondragon, usually, you might notice, I am in the career of physical engineering. So things are applied and people do collaborations with industry, which I find a little bit hard, to be honest, because usually industry wants immediate results, and usually the paying ones are the marketing team. So they want the news title. So I need to find the balance between having real results, which is why I'm here, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I know that using in quantum communication and these kind of things, you can do something today, and the balance. So having results and having honest work, which is scalable and actually develop something upon quantum technologies, and not just a cherry on top to decorate a classical algorithm, which sure works, but only gives you the news title, and then loses relevance as the years go by.
And industry, most likely, is still very interested in this concept of the Q day, or this day where we will have a quantum algorithm. This can be Shor's, but this can be also a variation, update of it, or a variation of it, or something completely new, which can run on a sufficiently large quantum computer. The projections are at now 1 million qubits, but also a lot of experts are saying it's maybe 300 qubits, not 300,000 qubits now. And for national security and industry, this poses an existential risk for sensitive data, which has been shared and still is being shared using RSA. And we know that adversary groups of institutions are harvesting data today in order to decrypt it later. And this poses an existential threat and a real world problem right now, which companies face. And the real world problem is, how do I move from RSA to post-quantum secure encryption? And the NIST is recommending 4 encryption schemes. Most of them are lattice-based, and one is hash-based. What's your opinion on this? Do you have a stance on it?
Yeah, I do. I do think it's exciting to think about an all-powerful quantum attacker that will change our lives. Sure enough, eventually we will need some post-quantum cryptography to deal with the breakings of the current encryption of internet and whatnot. Sure, that will come. I don't have an informed opinion of how many qubits we actually need. So for that, I refer to the experts. So I'm still stuck with the million count. Maybe it's less. Maybe it's around somewhere there. But currently, post-quantum cryptography can be let's say, there are many classical strategies that should already be taken to improve cybersecurity in industry. Cybersecurity, so we should actually pay more attention to cybersecurity. And post-quantum cryptography perhaps is being a good buzzword in this sense, because it can attract companies to actually care about their cybersecurity. I think there are improvements to be made before caring about this. But going through post-quantum cryptography, maybe it's a good hook. And yeah, we will need it eventually. And I don't think I think perhaps this is the usual opinion that we won't really need quantum systems to achieve some kind of post-quantum cryptography. Classical methods are fine, just find something else that can't be broken by quantum algorithms. Because to be honest, the current primitives that quantum mechanics can do better than classical mechanics are a bit limited. So it would also be interesting to find new stuff that it can do. I mean, they are not absolutely limited. They are sure interesting, but quantum computers can't do everything. Of course, there's something that they can't do, and obviously you will find a classical problem that they won't be able to attack.
Since we don't have a quantum computer, which is sufficiently at scale, let's assume 100,000 qubits or 200 or a million, and we do know that running shorts on this will break current RSA, but we don't know what other algorithms will come out, which might be even more advanced in breaking encryption or in factoring numbers. Can we sufficiently protect today, or do companies have to constantly keep tracking the quantum industry and its advancements to be in order to sufficiently protected, because otherwise you will basically be left out?
So that's an interesting question, and there's an interesting answer which was provided by one of the talks here in QIP. So the most important thing is not to care about the algorithms themselves, but the primitives that are actually available for the algorithms, because there are many algorithms which are comprised of different primitives. It's like missing Lego pieces. And the actual number of primitives is not that high. So for now, as long as you take into account these primitives, and I don't know whether you also need to take into account to some degree their possible combinations, you should be fine. Of course, there could be new primitives along the way. That's true. Yeah, but that's life, right? What can we really do about that?
Okay, so the short answer is yes, be concerned, but also quantum cannot do the unthinkable or anything.
Yes, it's a little bit hard to make new primitives out of nowhere. And perhaps people in this area would be able to say, this is definitely not possible. Yeah, there will never be a primitive that does this. So there could be. That's a nice way of. That's a nice place to research. Find definite no-go theorems of what quantum can do.
Okay, so don't panic, but be cautious.
Yeah.
And for someone who would be watching signals from quantum information, or the field of quantum information, what would you recommend? What the signals are to keep track of progress? Where to look?
What kind of signal? Okay. Signals. Who is asking? Who wants the signals?
Let's say you are an industry leader and you're sitting in a boardroom and you get your yearly update on security, and the quantum threat is coming up more oftenly, and you need to make an informed decision and also want to keep track of how it evolves. Both our conferences like QIP the right place to be at to get to the latest trends, or is this maybe too much information? So what would you recommend from as a professor in the field to someone who is interested but doesn't have the resources maybe to fully track it?
Okay, so these signals might change with time, so definitely speak with an expert. And I would go for that, because the one reading the signals shouldn't be the leader itself. Right?
Okay, so basically hire someone who is
not necessarily hire. consult at least.
Okay.
Because you don't need to check this every day, right?
Yeah, okay. But what would be some signals which you would advise if you were a consultant?
Okay, so this could be a good question for the areas of quantum benchmarking. Because right now we have the issue that different providers of quantum computers make their own benchmark, and each one makes the benchmark in such a way that they are favored. So it would be nice to have a good plethora of benchmarks that work for everyone and allow you to compare some metrics like quantum volume or but in general measure them with the same benchmark, and then we can talk. Yeah.
Okay.
So if we check this kind of research, we can talk based on the results of benchmarking. And
and oftentimes these claims from these companies are, or not oftentimes, but sometimes they're misleading. So
they are not lies. They are not lies, but of course it's a metric that puts them in in a nice light.
Obviously, and then someone who says they have thousands of qubits, these are maybe not error corrected.
I wouldn't say it's dishonest because they are actually making a metric, but we do need something that is homogeneous between all quantum computers to be able to contrast them.
Would you have like a benchmarking framework in your head? How you would
No, I'm not expert here. There are some people who are working on benchmarking in my university, and they have some ideas. These ideas are based on, so there are many papers around this, and we had a talk like last week, which was about, let me say in the very few words so it can be understandable, and note that there are many more benchmarks, and this is not my specialty. So this was about finding a score by which you can construct a Clifford unitary up to some percentage of depth. Yeah, that was it. And you could get a score that you could compare between different quantum algorithms. And they usually went for what percentage of depth of the Clifford unitary you can make with fidelity 90% or more.
And so that is, would you advise for something universal in that sense? Do you have a universal benchmark, or should every group still work on its own? So we kind of
I would go for a universal benchmark.
Okay, that is an interesting.
But of course, perhaps not from a single group, because more ideas will come, and it should be taken into account.
And maybe to talk more about a broader theme we have learned here, the quantum internet or communications of quantum computers which are distributed around the globe and are connected. Do you have an opinion about that? Would it be a net positive for us, or is this something which might add just more challenges without
it has too many challenges. I see it way for the very, very long term. But sure, there are some advantages, but then there's also classical primitives for security do work, and the question is, what can quantum mechanics actually provide? That's one of the things I'm trying to, that's what I'm working on. For instance, one of the things I'm working on is things that classical primitives cannot achieve, which is what we call data privacy and user privacy. But there are many more primitives. So if you see, there are few primitives of quantum cryptography that have reached standard, that have been standardized, and there are many more waiting. So the quantum primitives that come into this role are just a few more. It's just one more primitive waiting for standardization. So there's a lot that could be done, and depending on the area, they could be more or less relevant. Privacy has turned out to be a very relevant primitive, but there's so much that can be done, and there's so much that can be done from also classical cryptography.
Okay. And when we talk about maybe to dive a little bit more deeper into cryptography, do you think there are challenges in classical cryptography and quantum cryptography to replace cryptography, which is running on classical computers, with quantum cryptography, which might have different data sizes, schemes?
So Mind repeating the question?
So we have a classical computer world where we have classical classical encryption schemes, where there'll be a challenge replacing those encryption schemes with post-quantum secure encryption schemes, which might be larger in size, not fit the current standard.
So I wouldn't directly go for replacement. Because the race for saying that something has quantum advantage is always quantum versus classical, and classical can also improve its methods. And classical works really well for many things. So complementary approach are a good idea. So take whatever you can from quantum technologies, but don't forget what you can do from classical cryptography. So I wouldn't go for replacement ever.
So you add to your encryption schemes you have on your classical computers, do you add components which are quantum resistant as well?
Yeah, at least the things that can give us an edge over, an additional usefulness out of quantum systems that the classical part can provide, and meets that with what classical can provide.
That is the correct way, and I would also say that this is the best way to do it, since we also had benchmarks and tests which show that if you replace a classical algorithm with a quantum or post-quantum resistant scheme, you might be now susceptible to attack from the classical computer side. So it's also very, very important to not forget that you still have to be secure against traditional threats.
Of course, this is just a humble opinion from, let's say, not completely informed about everything in quantum cryptography. I do some stuff, but there are bigger references who can give you a
we are here to get your opinion, and it's an opinion, and you don't have to every piece of post-quantum cryptography.
Yeah, sure, it's a draft. I'd love to think more about it and maybe perhaps have a better opinion with more details.
And tell us about your, let's say, macro view on the industry and on the research field. What gets you excited, and what do you think we will achieve maybe in the next few years? What are real milestones to progress and to enter maybe a new or more people, reach more people, get more, or enter this human consciousness in a bigger way, where it's not just a niche part of physics, but becomes an integral part maybe of humans' lives, because it is quantum information and quantum physics is an integral part of our lives. We just don't think about it so much. And what are some milestones you're excited about, you're sure we are going to hit, and what are some of them you would hope we're gonna achieve?
Well, I very much would be happy for the day when quantum stops being a buzzword.
Yeah.
Electricity was a buzzword in its own time.
Exactly.
Frankenstein. I always take as reference as sci-fi.
Yeah.
So the first science fiction, arguably the first science fiction novel, the magic part was electricity.
Yeah.
Now we have science fiction, and the magic part could be like, let's say, particle physics. We're talking about Spider-Man, or maybe quantum as well.
Yeah.
And I'd love for the day that quantum is no longer mystery to be used as the magic element for stories. And I don't see us having personal quantum computers anytime soon, or perhaps ever. But they will have their use, of course. Currently, quantum computers that we researchers use, we use them on a cloud base. And that's the approach, and probably that will be the approach later on. But of course, other applications such as communications do need a live quantum system to send and receive. So there's that. There's experimental challenges required to be able to. So you would need actual hardware on site to do some things, and you don't need it for other things.
And that touches maybe the idea and the consensus I think everyone has, that quantum computers are not magically better computers. They are not something you can do anything you can imagine on. They're more addition to the classical stack.
Yeah.
For some specific things where it matters.
Yeah.
This could be encryption, this could be communication, but not for the daily use of, you don't need quantum properties in everything. Really.
Well, perhaps the one primitive that is becoming more general than everything else is the HHL algorithm, but it has a lot of challenges ahead. The loading problem, actually making sure that all the check marks on the HHL are satisfied to have advantage.
Yeah,
it has a lot of check marks ahead, but it's one of the ones which has the more general applications, perhaps.
Maybe we can dive deeper, maybe you can explain just in a few words about HHL.
Yeah, so it's a general thing. So the HHL algorithm is an algorithm composed of many different primitives. So to explain it would require to explain all of them. But the core idea is that in a way it inverts a matrix which is akin to solving a linear algebra problem. So the typical linear algebra problem, which is matrix A multiplied by vector V gives you some other vector. And you want to find, given this other vector, you want to find the values of this vector B. Yeah, so what you need is to invert the matrix, multiply it by this side, and that's how you get it. And the HHL algorithm is a way of doing it, but not exactly. It's not like you actually get the vector as numbers in a paper. You get a quantum state, which is the superposition, which is proportional in amplitudes to this vector. And you know, a quantum state has some particularities that you cannot simply measure it and obtain all the amplitudes. You cannot just have a state, measure it a few times, and write down all the numbers of it. You need to retrieve some aspects of it. So what we can do with this kind of thing is you can get your output, and you can measure in some special way where you get some answers about this vector. So maybe you want some specific relationships about the result of this thing. And that's how you would use it. And then there are many more check marks that the HHL needs. And one of them is this retrieval thing. What exactly do you want to retrieve? Should be just a few bits, something that is manageable, not the full vector. But yeah, I mean, linear algebra is everywhere, so this can be very general for different applications.
And for that specific retrieving, we would need a quantum computer.
Yeah, of course.
Or
for doing the algorithm, you need a quantum computer.
Yeah.
For doing all the primitives, you need a quantum computer. So once you get the state, and you need to obtain something of the state, it's a quantum state, so you need a quantum computer. Or perhaps, well, what you can do is, so the state is a superposition of the, the state you get is written in the canonical basis, what we call the computational basis. So you could try to get the amplitudes, but if you wanted to obtain everything about the quantum state, you would need to do a lot of measurements, and if you do that, you lose the advantage. So you don't want to get everything. You want to get some aspects of it, something specific about the relationship of this vector.
And would this change our understanding of some of the linear algebra, or would it just make it more efficient?
Not an understanding, but it increases our efficiency for stuff related to linear algebra problems, which can be many different things.
And do you see something particular, which could be?
Okay, so I don't want to. No, I don't have a well-informed opinion. So, but I mean, it appears everywhere. So everywhere you have a problem that is modeled by this. No, I wouldn't dare say.
Okay, got it. All right. That was very, very interesting to learn also a little bit more about HHL. And yeah, I'm sure since linear algebra, as you said, is everywhere, there will be a lot of ways to apply something like this.
I actually teach the HHL as part of my quantum computing course. It's a big deal. I try to incorporate it, but I focus, a bit on the steps of how to do it, but mostly on the check marks to make sure that it actually has quantum advantage, which is a big deal that has been pointed by Scott Adamson. So there's a nice paper called Read the Fine Print, where he talks about what is the check marks that you actually need to perform HHL in a context where you have quantum advantage. And the papers that actually go after these check marks are very scarce. There aren't very many papers that focus on that part.
Just to define, Scott Aronson is Professor Aronson from the University of Texas in Austin. and also a leading figure in the quantum field. Okay, and what do you say, since the only, in mainstream media, Shor's algorithm is the one which is always mentioned so often, do you think we will see with HHL or some other algorithms something similar in attention of outside press, or do you think Shor...
Like a new protagonist algorithm besides those two?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell, really.
Yeah. But do you look forward to something in this research, which you've maybe learned here during the conference? Is there something you are interested in which could maybe evolve into something?
So more than something in particular, I look forward to seeing more primitives.
Okay. So more
because
primitives.
HHL has a lot of primitives. It's an interesting combination of them, but I very much look forward to different primitives of quantum computing.
And how could we discover new ones?
I have no idea.
Maybe through more experiments? Or?
No, it comes from the theoretical part.
Okay, so the theoretical
from
part.
complexity, probably.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So you mentioned you had a lot of value in the QIP so far. And how did you like generally the poster sessions? How successful was your poster? What would you say?
I had the chance to talk with a lot of people who gave me interesting feedback. We were able to defend some comments, and we were able to find possible collaborations and new ideas, really. So people came and actually made gave some ideas that could work for us. And yeah, I found it pretty enriching.
Okay, and tell us...
And fun.
Any particular other posters you saw which interested you?
So during the last poster session, in the last poster session, I was very stationed on my own poster. But before that, I was very interested into some posters which were talking about reaching asymptotically reaching the whole level bound. Okay, so this is too technical, but I can briefly say that the whole level bound is it's kind of like the maximal amount of information you can get from a quantum measurement. And it's a theoretical thing. You don't necessarily see it experimentally, but someone was getting in the asymptotic limit of many samples that they would reach the whole level bound for this kind of information extraction in the quantum state. And it was nice seeing this theoretical thing in some experimental, or at least simulation scenario.
Any prediction who might be the winner of the old posters?
No.
You're not trying to...
I mean, I liked my own, but obviously I'm very biased.
You can also mention your own.
And I'm very proud of my drawings. I made some sushi drawings for my poster. There's actually some drawings about the data being cut.
Do you do this by hand or by hand, or how, or do you use?
So I do my posters in Keynote, and I do the drawings themselves in Keynote as well. Changing in some shapes, actually taking some of the pre-made figures, chopping them into vectors, and then changing the shape of these vectors. Yeah, it's fun. It took some time, some sacrifice.
So no AI.
No AI. No. I avoid that. I like doing the drawings myself.
That is super nice.
I've seen a lot of AI drawings. I mean, they look nice. They look the same, however. But what can we do, right?
The main industry topic is still Q-Day. So people are interested in what can you do with quantum. And the main thing we know what is necessary is cryptography.
Okay.
That is for sure. There are advantages in computation, but so far classical can catch up with proven advantages.
Yeah.
And that has been happening, I mean, all the time almost. But where classical cannot compete is breaking RSA. And that's what we know. So the preparation of this potential breaking of RSA and the proven fact that RSA will be broken, it's not even a question of if, it's more like when, leads to this necessity to upgrade security systems.
So these are the things that excite me. So things that quantum mechanics can do that are completely impossible in classical physics. Sure, speed up is nice and
but
very
speed
practical.
Up can also come from scale. I mean.
Yeah, but I love things that are completely impossible in classical.
And breaking RSA so far completely impossible. I mean, let's say elliptic curve encryption, but it is possible with a quantum computer. It is possible with Shor's. The question now, will we stick with Shor's in 20 years or 10 years or 5 years? Who knows? Maybe something completely...
Or will Shor only be the imaginary adversary forever?
Yeah.
Since everyone will catch up before he's implemented.
That is my my fear that I don't know if it's possible to predict as much. That is my fear, to be honest. Because we never, like when we have new technologies, let's say AI, you get the theoretical idea what AI will do, but then the actual implementation with large language models, which we have now, running on chips which were designed primarily for video games, I don't think anyone predicted this in the way we are running large language models now.
Who could have, right?
So you have multiple things which were built for different, for example, tensor networks, which were primarily used for quantum, were super, super important for LLMs. And I think this is what the beauty of science is, the beauty of physics is, and maybe computer science, is that you have these elements which people don't predict work together, and then you end up with something completely new.
Yeah.
And this could happen here as well, very easily, right? You could maybe have a quantum computer of 1,000 qubits, but combined with something else which we don't even necessarily use in the quantum field, could lead to something like very important, like maybe breaking RSA already. And I think that is something industry wants to learn about, is fearing, and also nation states are fearing. And I think that is the main use case right now. Professor Gatti, thank you much for joining us. It was an honor to talk to you, and I hope we will talk again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.